Hello, good evening, and welcome to Prog Chattery 777. We're talking about Genesis. We have made it to, oh my god, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Now, how on earth am I supposed to talk about this? This is one of those, mega legendary kind of albums by one of the mega legendary prog bands of the 70s. It is, I guess, a magnum opus, I think is probably the word to describe it. It is a double album, obviously. It's a concept album, obviously. Storyline running through it. But it's a very confusing and convoluted storyline that no one understands. In fact, if anyone tells you, oh yes, I know exactly what The Lamb is about, don't trust them. They don't know. They do not know what it's about. Basically it's about a Puerto Rican fellow street kid living in New York City who goes on a spiritual journey of self-discovery, or something along those lines. It is very hallucinatory. Lots of weird images and weird characters and just bizarre stuff. Really like the album cover. Not everyone likes the album cover. I think it's really cool. Obviously, it's set in New York City, so the sort of a very English, whimsical nature of earlier Genesis albums is a little bit not present on this album. It's almost like when you look at the albums coming before this, every album jumps forward a little bit, like Nursery Crime kind of introduces the fairy stories and elaborates on those, and Foxtrot is a bit heavier, and they do the big, full sidelong epic with Supper's Ready. And then, setting England is almost like the culmination of everything they'd done, coupled with a superior production. And I personally think Selling England is like perfection. I think that's where they hit perfection. And this is, they took the next step forward. And where else do you go other than to make a massive, two-disc concept album with a very confusing story? It's got that very sci-fi kind of thing. There's a sci-fi element to it. That's what I was trying to get at with the album cover. Obviously, this is illustrating moments in the story, and Rail is the name of the Puerto Rican kid. I should have said. You see all his misadventures here. There's the story. Very difficult to get through because it's just so long and so confusing and so strange. And of course, oh no. This doesn't have the inner sleeves. It must have been replaced or put somewhere else. How grossly irresponsible of me. Yeah, I guess a bit of history. It was a bit of a tumultuous time in the band's history. It's a long story. Peter Gabriel was kind of in the band and then out of the band and then back in the band. He was kind of talking about making a film score, I believe, with the guy that did The Shining. No. I sound like an idiot now. He was going to do a film project, and then obviously his first daughter there was a difficult birth and lots of distractions, and so the band wasn't really totally gelled at this point. Also, Peter Gabriel took it upon himself to be the exclusive lyric writer, which makes sense. If you're going to do a big concept album like this, you're going to want some kind of common thread going through it, so he took it upon himself to write the lyrics. And again, this put him in conflict with the rest of the band. So you've got Peter Gabriel in one room doing all the lyrics, and the rest of the band coming up with this really, really awesome, top-of-the-line, progressive, fusion-y, jazzy, wonderful instrumental bits on this, under the lyrics and that. Because there was this division, as, all of you guys know the history, this was the final album by the classic five-man Genesis lineup featuring Peter Gabriel, Steve Hackett, Phil Collins, Tony Banks, and Mike Rutherford. So yeah, let's try and talk about the songs a little bit here, and try and convey bits of the story as we go along. It is very confusing and convoluted, and like I said, no one really understands it. I don't even think Peter Gabriel totally understands it. I think he's just, when he thinks about it, he kind of giggles, because it's just so dense. So, side one. We open with the title track, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. So there's a nice little piano intro, that's kind of the closest thing you get to the early Genesis right off the bat, and you know, kind of turns into a kind of a standard rock song, with you know cool lyrics that set up the scene. It's just talking about New York City. Very visually, you know, great imagery in that first song, in the lyrics. And you know, it's kind of a classic. I've never been a huge fan of it, to be honest, because compared to some of the other openers that Genesis had, you know, Dancing with the Moonlit Night or Watcher of the Skies or even Musical Box, this is quite a simple song. It's just kind of a basic rock song. You get, you know, your riff, you know, verse and a chorus, and there's kind of a dynamic bit in the middle. But again, it's just setting up the story. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and establishes that they're trying not to sound English, but they still sound English because it's Genesis. That's just what happens. Yeah, a good song. Then that song as the title track fades out, we get these kind of mysterious guitar chords. I think the band's cue when they wrote this next song, "Fly on a Windshield," their cue was "Think of the Nile River." It kind of sounds like that. Now in this song, there's a giant black cloud that descends over New York City, and our hero Rail, Puerto Rican kid in the streets, is the only person that notices this black wall of cloud or something slowly sweep across to Manhattan. And he describes it as hovering like a fly waiting for the windshield on the freeway. And that's one of the greatest moments of all of Genesis, that when that line comes in and then the song just so good. It is one of the best moments in all of Genesis, probably, right at the beginning of the album. And then of course the instrumental section after that is great. Steve Hackett's got a lot of really cool atmospheric solo-y stuff that he does, and just absolute classic Genesis track. A little short. It's kind of a sieg, but it's so good. And that kind of, the song blends into Broadway Melody of '74, which I guess it's kind of a repeating theme, just da 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 da, etc. That becomes a bit of a theme that kind of pops up later in the album, just that little rhythmic phrase. And the lyrics just kind of illustrate how he's in like an alternate parallel reality of some kind. You know, the lyrics are kind of, you know, each line doesn't make sense with the last and that. So it's pretty cool. Again, it's setting up that he is no longer in the New York that he thought he was, or that he is used to. Then after that song winds up and the cool lyrics are done, we get Cuckoo Cocoon, which again is a bit of a sieg. Kind of sounds like the earlier arpeggiated acoustic songs, except it's on an electric, and it's a bit boring. It's a sieg that may overstay its welcome. It's 2 minutes and 12 seconds or something. But that's okay, because the next song is In the Cage. Just the lyrical part is describing he feels like he's in a cocoon after he's been hit by this wall of blackness. We get into the next song, which is In the Cage. Now this is another classic Genesis moment. A very urgent song, and I think it does really well. The music does well to describe the lyrics, and that, you know, Rail's panicking. You know, he's in this black mush of parallel reality, and he's now in a cage, and it's just that I feel the song is kind of illustrating the you know, that kind of claustrophobic sense of dread. And then at this song, I believe this is the first part of the album where we're introduced to Rail's brother John, who he sees from in the cage, and then John just kind of looks at him and leaves, I think. But the music on this song, on In the Cage, is just stellar. And there's a really cool long instrumental section in the middle. It's just an absolutely fantastic Tony Banks moment. And then when it slows down, it goes into the it's brilliant. And again, Tony Banks is just on fire on this album. So many. He's on fire quite a bit during this period, but he's got some great synthy bits here. Then In the Cage finishes up, and we get the grand parade of Lifeless packaging, which it's kind of a weird way to end off the first side, because you get In the Cage, which is this monstrous epic, and then, you know, Lifeless packaging is just kind of this silly march. Bum, bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum. It's kind of, the music is kind of silly, and I think Brian Eno was involved and did some processing on Gabriel's vocals a little bit, which is cool, but it's not totally necessary, I guess. Eno is cool though. I'm very pro Eno in principle. But the lyrics on the song are quite dark, because he's looking at, our hero is now observing all these lifeless people that are kind of alive. It's weird. I mean, imagine walking through a hallway filled with all the people that you've ever seen in your life, and kind of lifeless and stagnant, and it's weird. It's surreal. It is surreal. That's the way to describe this album. It's an okay way to close the first side. We flip the first disc, and we are introduced with the first song on side 2, which is "Back in New York City." This is a contender for one of the best songs on the album. It's been covered by a lot of people. It's a famous song. Again, Tony Banks and the synthesizer is just it's so good. And there's that theme kind of repeats, that bum 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 bum. It's kind of like a heartbeat, I guess. And yeah, it's got a really shouty vocals by Peter Gabriel. Bizarre lyrics about a porcupine. This is where I get a little confused with the story, really, because we get it that he's back in New York City and he's got this new perspective, or he's still a parallel version of New York City, and he has this altered perspective, having been through the cage and the parade of lifeless packaging and blah blah blah. But the porcupine thing gets really weird. I think it has something to do with his experience in life so far is turned his heart into something of a porcupine. It's got all this fur and stuff on it, and something like that. And then that explains the title of the next song, which is "Hairless Heart," which is one of the instrumental siegs that they did. There was a lot of these cool little instrumental siegs that link the album together, and that's called "Hairless Heart." So I think that's saying he's shaving off the hair on his heart so he can, I guess, get back to the purity of his innocence and his youth, which makes sense because the next song after that is "Counting Out Time," which is pretty silly, really. It's about recollecting one's first experience with a lady, and looking at a book to figure out where all the right zones are to make the lady happy, and it doesn't seem to go well. And I think his lady wasn't impressed. Rail's lady, when it's a reflective song. He's looking back at his innocence. And just a little aside, talking about those little instrumental siegs, there's a really, really great one after the In the Cage song. Just boom, 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 boom. It's all out of order, but that's a good part of the first side. Anyway, so Counting Out Time, we have his little flash from the past. Then we get to the Carpet Crawlers. Now, this is probably the most famous song on the album. Genesis has played it at probably every one of their concerts after it was released, and it's really, really good. It's great little vocal melody. Peter Gabriel was really proud of the vocal melody. I mean, the lyrics are, even though the verses are kind of convoluted and strange, and they're talking about all these other people that are, I guess, in this nightmarish world, crawling through it to try and get out. You got to get into it to get out of the nightmare, I guess. It's weird, but the chorus is really, really. I mean, that's a very open-ended line. I think that's why the song's so popular. Gotta get in to get out, and that could mean so many different things. I think that contributes to its success. Great vocals, backing vocals by Phil Collins as well. There's a version that they re-recorded, and much later. I think it was like 2000 something. And they re-recorded this song, and yeah, it's just really nice hearing Gabriel's voice and Collins' voice together. I mean, they're very complementary voices, and yeah, that song is probably the highlight of their two voices together. Great song. Little light, but it's good. Then we get Chamber of 32 Doors. Now this is closes off the second side, and it really is something of a massive sprawling epic. It's kind of condensed into like 5 minutes or something, and very melancholy. And you can really hear the American sound that they were trying to achieve on this song. The whole section, I'd rather trust a countryman than a town man. And just musically, that sounds very American. It's almost like a kind of a melancholy honky tonk piano, if ever that existed. But yeah, it's a good song, and again, lots of changes. It is very dark. And again, in the story, now he's gone with all these crawlers, and he's entered this chamber. And I think it's illustrated in the book. Where is the chamber in the book? Or on the sleeve. I think that's it. Possibly. Yeah, and he's basically stuck, and any door he goes to leads him right back to the same place. So obviously a nightmarish, surreal kind of a thing. See, still, what makes the plot so confusing is that it's like, I don't see a linearity between the events in the songs. It's kind of just like, this event, and then boom, this event, and then boom, this event. It doesn't seem linear, but again, it's a surreal, bizarre nightmare story. I mean, if you're a really weird dream, it doesn't necessarily make sense, right? I think that might be what they were trying to convey on this. Anyway, that's the first disc. We take this off the turntable, we put the second disc on the turntable, and we get side 3, which opens with Lilywhite Lilith. Now, this is a really cool song, actually. Apparently, it was written way, way back in the early days, like parts of it anyway. But after the darkness and the melancholy of Chamber of 32 Doors, like this riff just comes in, and it's the hope moment. There's all of a sudden there's hope. Do 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 do. The chamber was in confusion. Actually, there's a bit of linearity between the two songs right there, but I guess it's you're ending disc 1 and you got to get into disc 2, so it's just kind of giving you that. Okay, yeah, it is a part of the same album kind of a thing. And it's about Lilywhite Lilith, who saves the day, I guess, and leads him out of the chamber, I guess. And then there's a little reprise of Broadway Melody of 74 that comes in. So I think that's kind of keeping the themes together in the album. Then we get The Waiting Room. Now this is Genesis does a King Crimson, basically. And it's really good, actually. It's a weird way to kind of kick off the second album, because you kind of get this really cool accessible rock song about a lady figure, and then it just turns into just bizarre sounds for 5 minutes, which I like. It might be some people might find that a bit what, but I like it. I like weird stuff. And that's The Waiting Room. So I guess he left the Chamber of 32 Doors and now he's in this waiting room. That's The Waiting Room, I'm quite certain. I think. And then the really cool thing, all the madness is going on, and then the band kind of locks into a groove, and the groove fades in. You get this. That's another like absolute Genesis career highlight for me. I really love that resolution when the band comes back in. Really, really nice. Then we move over to the next song, third song on side 3, Anyway. And I think this is a really underrated song. The production on this one song seems better than the rest of the album for some reason. It's kind of led by the piano. It's got a nice little crazy heavy section. Not really sure where it fits in the story, but I mean the lyrics are expressing regret, it seems, maybe desperation. I don't really know what the lyrics mean, but I mean when he says "damn it all," there's a moment. Damn it all! I don't know. It just hits me. It really captures the essence of being frustrated at a nightmare. Yeah, really good song. Very underrated. Then we got the Supernatural Anaesthetist. I think this was one of Steve Hackett's contributions. It kind of feels Steve Hackett-y. It's got a very tiny little lyric. There's less lyrics on the second disc. The music the music gets bigger. There's more instrumental bits in the second disc. But it's got a cool little riff. I like that. I've heard some theories that the supernatural anaesthetist is death. He's kind of like the Grim Reaper, but he's represented as some kind of doctor. Then we get the Lamia. This is almost, it kind of basically closes the third side. This is Tony Banks' big musical bit, and it's pretty good. I really like the the little quiet bits in the middle. There's one first time he does it with the piano, and then he does it with the synthesizer, which I think is really cool, or maybe the other way around. And the lyrics, now Rail is in a chamber, he's kind of in a cavern, and there's all these demonic, lovely, female figures kind of floating about, and I guess that's heaven. If supernatural anaesthetist is in fact death, he's in this placid lake of lovely female bodies, I guess. And live, there's a really cool part where Gabriel got this big spherical thing that went up to the ceiling, and that represented being in the water, I guess. Yeah, it's really good, really good. And then we get another one of the instrumental siegs, which closes the third side, very strangely, because it feels like Lamia ends, it's like, oh, okay, flip the side, and then there's like, I don't know, just a couple of minutes of just atmosphere. Not my favorite sieg on the album, but live it served the purpose of letting Peter Gabriel get into his costume for the next song, the opener of side 4, The Colony of Slippermen. This is the really ridiculous costume. If you're watching this video, I'm sure you know what it is. It was the peak of Gabriel's theatrics, I think. And this might be my favorite song on the album, actually, The Colony of Slippermen. It reminds me more of it reminds me of like a Battle of Epping Forest or something. The voices and the theatrics and whatnot. And really, it's an extended, it's about an 8-minute song. There's a lot to it. And really, this is kind of the climax of the album. This is the big finale of the album, really. It's the start of side 4. And the lyrics obviously are bizarre. I mean, he's floated down this underground lake or whatever stream with all these lovely ladies, and he's ended up in the colony of Slippermen, which are all these morbidly appearing, kind of misshapen creatures who, perhaps the victims of the nightmare that never got out, maybe. And I'll just come right out and say it. In the story, they castrate poor Rail, and they put the thing in a yellow plastic shooby-doob, and it's put into a river, into the rapids, and it floats away. And then Rail is obviously wanting to get it back, runs down the river, and then a raven comes and flies away with it, and then that's the end of the song. Or no, maybe the raven drops it in the river, yeah, because he says to watch it float away. Watch it float away, watch it float away. Cool ending. I love the atmospheric sort of synthy sounds that are going on there. But yeah, anyway, he's lost his thing, and he doesn't get it back, and that's really sad. And then it just goes into another one of their instrumental siegs, Ravine, which I think is one of the best siegs on the album. It's just kind of windy sounds, these very atmospheric chords, very mysterious almost. It's almost, this is kind of like the end of the nightmare. Like I said, I think Colony of Slippermen is really the finale of the album. This is the big closer, and then the windy sounds just kind of fade it all out. And then the rest of the album is, I guess, trying to piece it together almost. It's like the other songs don't feel as tied with the story. I mean, the story is completely mad anyway, but yeah. And then light dies down on Broadway. So after Ravine, this is where a whole bunch of other themes of the album start coming back. So we get a combination of the Lamia and the title track, Lamia Dies Down on Broadway. It's kind of melancholy, which, it should be, because he lost his thing and didn't get it back. So obviously that calls for melancholy. And it's good, you know. At this point, you're starting. I think you're probably getting some listening fatigue because it is a pretty long album. Um, yeah, it's okay. It's cool. Then we get Riding the Scree, which is a funky kind of a jam with silly lyrics. Here I go. Great Tony Banks keyboardy bits. Great Phil drumming. Just right in the groove, you know. Riding the Scree. That's a good one. Then In the Rapids, which is, you know, it is just a nice little. Again, it's like it's postlude. It's the. You know, what the hell happened? And then John is reintroduced. I think there's been a few John references in the album that I've missed. His brother John. And this is where I'm gonna give away the ending. Oh my gosh, he finds out in the song In the Rapids that John is not his brother at all. It's actually just him. And to save himself, he has to save his brother, and to save his brother, he has to save himself. Wow, mind blown. And that's the big discovery. And then we get It, which is it's just kind of the big wind up. You know, it's a good song. They're strumming the guitars instead of arpeggiating, and it's pretty high energy. It's a pretty high energy little acoustic thing. And I guess the theme of the song is that, you know, well, like The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. What is it? Well, it's everything. It's chicken, it's eggs, it's in between your legs. It's only knock and know all, but I like it. It's a summing up, I guess, and it's saying that, you know, everything is connected. It's all it. It's right here. This is the nightmare. This is the dream, I guess. I don't know. I really don't know what the album's about or what the closing message is, but I did just review it. I didn't review it. I don't do reviews. I just talked about it. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, that's all there is to say, I guess. This is The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, the magnum opus of Genesis. I think I like Selling England more because that's more of a complete album, and this is just their moment of access where they took it that one step further, and obviously we're all glad they did because it is a momentous album. But it's not their best. They did better things before and after. So yeah, there you go, the final album by the classic Genesis lineup. And my god, is it a weird one. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. You've been watching Prog Chattery 777, blah 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 blah. And we'll see you next time for A Trick of the Tail. See you later.